Hello friends and welcome back to the channel. In this episode, we'll try our hand at some Japanese milk bread. This is by far the softest loaf of bread I've ever made. To achieve this texture, we will make a kind of roux. It's called a Tangzhong. To make it, we'll take some of the flour and a little bit of the milk and we'll cook it ahead of time in a pan. And once it's cooled down, we'll add it to the bread dough. And this is what the end result will look like. Amazingly soft Japanese milk bread. So stay tuned to see how it's made, and as always, you'll find all the details down in the description box. I always write my recipes with metric and imperial units. But first, let's see what equipment we need. A bowl, scales, a dough scraper, a temperature probe, you'll need a bread tin and a brush, and a little pot with a spatula or whisk, but a spatula will work better. Now on to the ingredients. You'll need some strong white bread flour, sugar, salt, yeast, some milk, some softened butter, and an egg yolk. The egg yolk will be used for making a glaze for the bread. So what we need to do, separate the egg white and then add a teaspoon of milk and give it a good mix. Now let's make the Tangzhong. It's very simple. Add your milk and the flour to a pot and bring it over to the hob top. And we'll need to cook this on a medium to low heat. You want this to be cooked slowly. Keep an eye on it, keep stirring it, make sure there's no lumps. You want to cook it until it gets nice and thick. It doesn't take too long, around 5 minutes should do it. And once it's nice and thick, there's no more lumps, get it in a little bowl. We need to refrigerate it until it's cold. Make sure to scrape out as much as you can from the pot. At the end of the day, this is a portion of the total milk and a portion of the total flour. And the more you leave in the pot, the more different the recipe will be at the end. Now cover it with cling film, make sure it's touching. If you leave air pockets, they will dry out and be harder to work it into the dough. Now make sure the Tangzhong is completely cold before you use it. And once it's cold, get your bowl, add the milk, add the sugar, yeast, salt, get the roux out of the fridge, also add that to the mix, and then break it up using a spatula. I'm using cold milk from the fridge because my kitchen is quite warm. And if you want to learn more about controlling dough temperature, click the link in the top right corner. But once you've broken up the roux, you can add the butter and the rest of the flour. Now grab your scraper and give it a good mix. This dough may seem quite dry at the beginning, so mix it, you'll feel like biscuit dough. And if you can't mix it anymore with a scraper, just continue on with your hand. To avoid making a mess, do this process in the bowl. And only once you have a cohesive dough, tip it out on the table and start kneading it. This is quite a dry dough, so I'll use a regular kneading method. What I like to do is press down and forwards with the heel of my right hand, then using the fingers of my left hand to fold the piece of dough under the heel of my right hand, then turn and repeat. Once you've done this a couple of times, the motion will become fluid. It'll be quite easy to do it. The whole process should not take more than 5 to 7 minutes. And once the dough is nice and smooth and not sticky, we get in the bowl and start fermenting. But make sure to always take the temperature before you cover it up. 24 to 25 degrees Celsius is just about perfect for this. If your dough is cooler, ferment it for longer. But if it's warmer, ferment it for less time. But for me, 1.5 hours was just right. But however long it takes, it should almost double in size. And now we can continue on with the next step in the process. Now release the dough from the bowl, place it out on the table, and get your scales. We have to divide this into 2 pieces, which are exactly the same in size. So just weigh your dough and cut it in half. And after dividing, we need to pre-shape. To pre-shape your dough, place it smooth side down, flatten it out, then fold the edge over the middle, going around in a circle until you reach the point where you started and have a nice tight ball. Then tighten it against the table. Make sure to leave it smooth side pointing up, cover it up, and we'll leave it to rest for 20 minutes before the final shape. Resting will relax the gluten, will make it a lot easier for us to shape. Now to do the final shaping, take your dough ball, place it smooth side down again, and flatten it out. You want to make it into an oval shape. Make sure not to press with your fingertips. It's much more effective and better to press with the whole finger. And don't worry if it's pulling back together at first. Just keep working it slowly and it will stretch out. And after stretching, the next step is taking one side and folding it over the middle. Then take the opposite side and fold it over the first side. And the last thing we need to do is roll it up. So starting from the top, roll, press and tuck. You want to shape it nice and tight, but don't go too crazy, you don't want to tear the surface of the dough. And that's it. That's a cute little roll done. Now all we need to do is repeat with the second one and try to make them as equal as possible. And now place them in your tin, smooth side pointing up. You can turn them either way, as long as the open ends are facing outwards. And make sure you pack them in there, nice and snug. I also like to press them down into the tin, so they fill all the gaps in the bottom. Don't worry about pressing too hard, they will spring back up again anyway. And that's our beautiful little loaf done. Now we can cover it up and leave it to proof for 1 hour. And whilst it's proofing, preheat the oven to 160 degrees C with a fan on. And if you have a solid metal pan, use it as a base. If not, it's totally cool. Now once the bread is doubled in size, it's ready. Now the last step we need to take is to give these a beautiful golden glaze. This is the egg yolk that we mixed with a teaspoon of milk earlier on. Get a brush and brush your buns all over. Now I like to go quite heavy on the glaze, so when I do it, I like to brush them all over with a good coat, and then I'll leave them to dry out for 5 minutes. Whilst it's drying, the glaze will set on top of the loaf, and then if you brush it again, you basically get double glaze. Yeah, double glazed bread. Now get this bad boy in the oven. Should not take more than 35 minutes or so. And once it's super puffed up and golden brown all over, it's ready. Kinda looks like a little backside, doesn't it? Now as a final touch, and this is completely optional, I like to brush them with a little bit of oil, or you can use some butter, just to give them that sheen. But that's the Japanese Tangzhong milk bread. Super simple process that yields beautiful results, and you should definitely give it a go. And this dough is quite versatile, just like brioche. You could use it for burger buns, for hot dog rolls, for dinner rolls. Hell, you could use it for sausage rolls, whatever. Just don't drop it like I did, okay? But as always, if you have any questions or suggestions, drop them down in the comments. Check out my Instagram. And subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. I publish bread baking videos every Wednesday and Sunday. And I don't only have recipes, I also teach bread baking principles. So if you're into your baking, check it out. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next one.